All right, Bob Chapman with us till 20 minutes in the next hour. We're going to do Twitter questions now and your phone calls, and I'm going to get into pension funds with him because they're already taking many people's pension funds. The government's just moving to take them over. So we'll discuss that when we go to the second segment of the next hour for people that are just joining us, and we'll recap Bob's intel on what really happened yesterday with that 1,000-point plunge and then it going right back up again. Let's talk to Chris in Rhode Island. You're on the air with Bob Chapman. Go ahead.
How are you guys doing today?
Pretty good. Go ahead.
Quick question. Is there any way that the general public can check put options on the Dow Jones that happened yesterday? Because we know the SEC doesn't really follow up on things like that, like we saw after 9/11.
That's a great question. We had record put options on airlines betting against them, just on American and United in the 4 days before 9/11, and that did come out in the German and British papers that it led back to Buzzy Krongard, executive director of the CIA. Bob Chapman.
Right, and that information is probably available, but I haven't been directly involved in the brokerage business for 20 years or more, and so I can't tell you how to get it.
But there are services out there that have it. The problem is it accurate information?
I would think it would be accurate.
So that's something
that identify who the sellers, who the buyers of the puts were, because that's house to house and then to a personal account of some kind. But it can show you the volume by house.
I wonder how the German papers found out it was Buzzy Krongard in 2001.
Probably by their intelligence operations, working with American Intel. Gave them the information. I would think that's how they got it.
Well, I'll say this, Chris. That's a great question. Why isn't the mainstream media? In fact, before we accuse them of it, let's Google it. Google, under Google News, which will do a news search, put options against the market for market plunge or something like that. Let's find out. Anything else, Chris? He dropped off. Okay, Pastor in Ohio, you're on the air.
Yes, Bob. Bob, my question is this: yesterday, with that stock market doing what it was doing, well, then we've had this prediction made back, since the first year that something was going to happen on May the 6th anyway. Well, then on top of all that, I was listening to another man that was talking on the internet that's talking about the martial law false flag that they did yesterday. That they was waiting until after 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for them to let them know whether it was going to be a martial law action or a stand down. Do you see all of that coming to pass?
Let me just stop you and then get Bob's answer. I do remember people saying something was going to happen May 6th in martial law, and I just ignore that type of stuff usually. Bob, what's your take on that?
Well, I saw the same thing you did and ignored it for the same reason. And maybe somebody had some information that this had been set up ahead of time. It's hard to tell.
Well, we know they had NLEO-10 with simulated nuke attacks set to start on May 6th, and that came out in mainstream news, but then they, quote, canceled it. It is suspicious that I hadn't thought of that. Great point, Pastor. I hadn't thought of it's too incredible, Bob.
It is, and, our problem is that we got to back into everything. We have nothing at our disposal. I mean, we have to use our ingenuity, and it's hard to cover everything.
Pastor, great points. Anything else?
Yes, that's why, Alex, you and Steve Quell and people like you guys, the one you had on there yesterday, Red, I believe was his name.
Red Beckman.
That's why you guys are so important, because you help everyone else get involved, and you got more eyes seeing things that you can't see. So my whole thing is just hang in there and just keep putting your faith and trust in the Lord, and just keep doing what God has called you to do, Alex, because you're allowing more and more people to wake up.
Pastor, that's a great point. God bless you. We'll be back in 70 seconds. It is already the fourth and final hour on this May 7th, Friday edition. Bob Chapman of the InternationalForecaster.com is our guest with the best market and economic analyst out there, predicted everything that's currently happening years and years ago with the derivatives bomb run by Goldman Sachs and the other 6 criminal banks. We're taking your phone calls, your questions, your comments about what you saw happen yesterday with the plunge protection team when the market dropped 1,000 points because of European trading. They pumped it back up through manipulation. That's on record. They have that power. The media is saying a fat finger did it. Maybe the Easter Bunny did it. Now, I want to go through a lot of calls quickly and go through a bunch of Twitter questions here because I also want to, if you can get in, have brokers or traders call in. We've confirmed that all over the country and the world, regular brokers and traders and day traders couldn't get online during this scenario. Let's go ahead and take calls for Bob Chapman. Let's talk to Al in Texas. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Alex. I'm always happy to hear Bob Chapman. He's great. I am asking him specifically about his advice that we have what amounts to a congressional clean sweep, because I have more than a little experience both in finance and in politics. I certified the American Stock Exchange and the NASD trading computers because I was both a principal engineer and an SEC registered financial advisor. I resigned my licenses for 2 specific congressional acts. One was the revocation of Glass-Steagall, and the other was the authorization of the Treasury Department to make secret transactions of any volume whatsoever. Under those conditions, I was satisfied, this was 20 years ago more or less, I was satisfied that the American stock market is absolutely rigged from beginning to end, and that the only alternative to that was to get a clean sweep in Congress. I have done work for Ralph Nader, recently for Deborah Medina, and I just a month ago completed, all for free, a manpower analysis for Ohio Congressional District 6 for James Traficant. Now, I will name names if I am asked them, but
well, Al, let me say this. Send us your name, your info. We'll check on you. You sound very credible. I'd like to have you on as a guest, even in studio, if you're in Texas or over the phone, with your information. And so we'd like to talk to you. In fact, we'll put you on hold and get your number, and you can send us your info. And but any other points you've got for folks or questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. You're finance. I'm finance. I'm not talking to the candidates. I'm talking to the campaign managers. And the campaign managers are finance people. And I just recently was stunned. I just flabbergasted when, in passing, I happened to mention that the American government had a new policy of assassinating Americans. The campaign manager for one of these candidates didn't ask me what my evidence was. He said flat out, "That's a lie." And I said, no, it isn't, and I will be happy to put together...
Well, no, that was in AP and UPI that they will assassinate Americans they believe are tied to terror, and they're saying they're going to arrest Americans. They have bills introduced without due process if they claim they think you might be a terrorist and strip you of your constitutional rights.
That's true. And I said, I'll put together a half a dozen of these film clips for you, which I did. I called him back, gave him the link to my server. Again, I provide all these services to politicians for free. And I gave him the link to my server to these half a dozen video clips of this. To this day, he has never logged on to that link.
Well, let me raise this point and then come back and get Bob's take on it, Al. When you look at all the major finance ministers in major nations, you look at local mayors, city managers, they're all run by the big banks. Bob Chapman.
That's right, and these people just don't want to know. And he probably knew already, but didn't want to admit it and said, I don't believe it.
He didn't say I don't believe it. He said that I was lying.
Well, it's tantamount. It's another way of putting it.
Well, I read like 7 or 8 mainstream news articles yesterday where they said they're going to kill and secretly arrest and torture citizens and strip us of our rights, and that the Pentagon has this power. Al, give us your phone number. We'd like to talk to you, okay? We're going to put you on hold. Stay there, Bob Chapman. More calls straight ahead.